right? So a little trick that I like doing with my lightsabers, because we don't have time to like, no one has time to like get that perfect like straight line, right? So I'm just gonna use trusty little tape. This is the only little cheap trick that I use for my paintings. It gets the job done. So what I'm doing right here, although you still want to be careful with this, right? Even though people think, oh, that's simple. Not really. I've seen people mess this part up a lot of times too, where they get the saber too thick, or they get it to a point where it's not parallel or weirdly shaped, right? But what I'm gonna do right here is I'm just gonna kind of go in and just kind of get like a nice little shape in here like so. You want to kind of also just take a look and ask yourself, okay, is this what I want the thickness of my saber to look like, right? One thing that you want to ask yourself. She has double sabers, so double the fun. I'm gonna do this twice, right? And what I usually like doing is I don't want to kind of go in exactly over on the edge of this area. I want to go a little bit into this lighter value that I established, right? That way, the midtone value that we laid out can act as a nice value aura. Okay, do this real quick. And because this saber is a little farther away, I'm gonna have that a little skinnier, just a little skinnier than this, right? Okay, all right, next, what this I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna grab a titanium white, right? And then basically kind of squeeze like pure titanium white on there, get the job done faster. And what I'm gonna do first is I'm just gonna kind of go in and get this nice pure white going like so. But yeah, those of you guys who see my work online, this is how I get the lightsaber effect. Super nice, simple, clean, easy. But only do this when your painting is dry. You can do it when it's wet, but it's just very messy. But I have also done this when the painting is wet. Like I did this for the Qui-Gon Jinn portrait. It just takes a lot of more, you know, takes a lot more work afterwards to kind of clean. Okay, I'm gonna do this over here. Get this in like so. Okay. All right. Cool. And once you got that in, next what you want to do is you just want to start tearing it down. Be very careful during this stage so you don't rip anything. But if you're working on canvas, it doesn't really matter. You're not going to rip anything. Okay. Gonna go ahead and kind of get this out like so. That out like so. And we have our light source. Okay, cool. All right, so next I'm going to show you guys just kind of how to alleviate, everything, right? So over here, get started now with actually painting. First thing that I'm noticing is I just kind of want to start going in here a little bit more, and I guess, paint a bit of that light aura, right? So since it's a lightsaber, we're not gonna use any specific colors. I'm gonna just mix my blues, my reds, and my yellows so that I get like a nice neutral. Okay. A little bit more red. One thing that you guys will notice is And this is something I will always repeat. Everything around us, everything surrounding us is comprised of red, yellow, and blue. That's something that I want everyone to kind of think about as they're painting, right? Okay, cool. So right now, what it is I'm gonna do is I'm just kind of going in here like so. And I'm just going to paint out a bit of this value that's kind of surrounding this light. Not too worried about, I guess, making it a thin stroke. Worry about that later. I'm just worrying about not letting it interfere with the white. So this is like the only kind of delicate procedure when it comes to painting sabers like this, right? Take it one at a time. And really take your time when it comes to doing this as well. You definitely do not want to rush and paint into the light, because if you do that, it's going to be very annoying to fix. Trust me on that, speaking from experience. Okay. So right now I'm just kind of painting this in like so. Really take your time when it comes to doing this. Okay. But basically, once you have something like so, next what we can do is I'm going to wipe away this brush, and I'm going to go in, mix my Viridian with my ultramarine blue with a bit of this ivory black, perhaps with a little bit of solvent-free gel and transparent red oxide. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slowly get started with painting into this section right here. Just to kind of create a bit of that effect.
On that note, since you mentioned the transparent oxide, I did go to Material List. I did order the stuff, but all I found was transparent red oxide. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So it can either be called transparent earth red, transparent red oxide, either or works, just get something that's equivalent. Just don't use like burnt umber or something, you know what I mean? That's totally different. The reason why I like transparent red oxide is just because it's more transparent and it allows you to get more cleaner earth tones without it looking dead or muddy, right? Okay, so right now I'm just kind of going here and getting a lot more of this solvent-free gel in. All right. But yeah, today's agenda is just finishing this painting up, right? So next what it is I'm going to do is I'm just going to start tackling out some of the backgrounds there. So I'm going to mix a nice deep green by mixing my ivory black and my cadmium yellow. I'm going to use that to get started with sculpting wet into wet onto that surface. Okay. My agenda right now is I'm just trying to fill in and cover up everything that I haven't yet painted, right? That's usually my first agenda when it comes to painting on, wet onto dry, or painting on a painting that, I've already kind of completed the first steps of. And one of the other reasons why I want to do that is also purely because I want to, I guess, put things on here so that I'm able to manipulate it as I continue forth. Because when you have wet paint on top of any surface, it's going to be a lot easier for us to manipulate the more we introduce on top of that foundation. All right. And as you can see, I'm just kind of going in here and taking a bit of this in like so. All right. Maybe get a little bit of solvent here just to kind of help create some nice liquefied strokes. And over here, just gonna kind of go in and start sculpting out a bit of this form by introducing a bit more of that background. Okay. Now, at the same time, I'm gonna go back in here because I already have paint here. I can start going in and manipulating this area and creating a bit more midtones right over here. Okay. All right. Any questions on what I'm doing so far?
Actually, I have a. Can you hear me?
Yeah. What's up?
Oh, sorry. I have a question actually about the like the reference image. Did you make this yourself, or was this
I
like
did. Oh yeah, I did. So the reference is, again, like I said, all these images I've been doing for the demonstration are all commissioned. So this reference, if you are curious to know, it's compiled of I think 4 different images that I kind of spliced together. If that makes sense, right? So like
okay.
the
So you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, so like the face is like, or like the head is one reference. The face actually is a part of like another reference. The body is part of one reference. And then I think the saber, I also like shifted it around a little bit. Does that kind of make sense?
Oh, okay. I got you.
Yeah.
No, because I was always curious about how you got like these like I don't know, you'd always paint the like Batman, all that kind of stuff. And it was like it didn't look like any, I guess, like pictures I'd ever seen, like any promotional art or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, I find it boring to just paint promotional art because I'm like, why? That's someone else's vision. Why would I copy that? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. So no, just make your own references, right? Like,
Yeah.
Photoshop is a great tool. I also work with a lot of cosplayers sometimes. I take pictures of them and then I manipulate that like back home, right? Yeah. It's kind of like virtually setting up a model and like just like like configuring everything.
No, have you ever done like 3D models too and stuff like that?
Not yet. I'm open to it in the future, but not yet. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But anyways, okay, cool. So right now, I think I'm gonna start going in and gonna start painting out a bit more of like these blacks, right? So for instance, I'm gonna start utilizing and sculpting out a bit more of this form. And the most important thing when it comes to painting, at least in my philosophy, is I never want to think about things as what they are. Like, even when I'm painting things like this, I'm not thinking of it like, oh, that's a hand, oh, that's an arm. I'm just thinking of it purely as shapes, right?
Yeah.
So that is one mindset I want you all to kind of try adopting. The faster you're able to kind of, get with that program, the easier it will be for you to just paint all these crazy references I'm going to throw at you guys. Let's see. That means letting go of all preconceived notions of what you think, you know, something should look like. That kind of make sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I have a student in my, in life classes, and he graduated from like the Florence Academy, and then he was like stumped when I threw him like a Darth Vader reference because he's like, oh my god,
Yeah.
we never paint stuff like this in the Florence Academy. I'm like, yeah, I know, right? I think it's truly when you are thrown subject matter that's like very not of the norm of what you're used to. That's when your true abilities and skill level shine through, like and where
Yeah.
there might be some, holes or, flaws, right? That's kind of shining a bright light on that. Okay.
No, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also fun too. It's more fun to like paint stuff like this than like a boring still life,
No, I feel like intimidated by stuff all the time. Like my friends are like, "Oh, can you paint like Darth Vader for me or something?" I'm like, I don't know.
That's so
I paint
fun.
portraits and stuff.
That's
I
so
don't know,
fun. Darth Vader is a portrait though.
yeah.
It's just portraits with like
It is.
small like different shapes, like
Exactly.
yeah. All right. So right now, one thing that I really like playing with my paintings is the idea of like value auras, right? Like light auras. Like for instance, like there is a light over here. How do I accentuate that light? Well, we can accentuate it by introducing a bit of a darker value here. So yeah, for this class, I'm going to be talking a little bit more about like these more intricate, like, subtle techniques as opposed to like the big picture techniques, which I usually talk about when I first start painting. So this hopefully gives you a bit of a, a good idea of like, a later stage for, what I usually focus on. Next week, when we start a new one, I'll do the whole spiel about like block-ins and, how to sculpt form and all that stuff. Anyways, yeah, to this week, at least for this class, it's all just about creating a visual effect, right? So yeah, should be interesting. Okay, so right now, as you can see, I'm slowly introducing more darks, but as I'm doing that, I'm also leaving some of these midtones here. The reason why is because I want to slowly start creating a bit of an atmosphere, letting the dark of the atmosphere help push the subject forward. And I can even use that by leaving out some of this midtone here. That way that midtone will help create basically a nice bridge or in between like the dark of the background and the light of the subject, right? Something that you'll see a lot in my work. All right. Now I'm just kind of darkening this area up just a little bit more. And let's see, over here, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna kind of go in, tackle a bit more darks, like so. Might get a little bit more light in there as well later, but you know what? We're gonna continue with this step for right now. All right, so I think when I'm at this stage, what I want to do right now is I want to start going in and tackling a little bit of this shape right here. So I can start by asking myself, all right, let's see, I see a dark shape right here that I'm just gonna kind of go and block out. Because the first thing you always want to do is identify what is the light shapes and what are the dark shapes. I can identify there's a dark shape right here and also identify a light shape right here in the form of a lighter bluish value, right? Maybe veering a little bit more towards purple now that I have a blue. I'm asking myself, I'm looking up, I'm like, oh, there's a little bit of red in there. That's actually one thing about color mixing too that I always like to talk about, or I always want to think about is usually you don't need to know color theory to get good colors, right? So for instance, for me, every time I'm looking at I'm looking at this value right here, I'm asking myself, all right, what is the local color that I see? And whether it be purple, blue, yellow, red, right? Like if I'm looking at this value right here, and don't think too hard. If you look too much and too hard, then you're gonna start second guessing yourself, and you'll be like, okay, what color is that? You know what I mean? So just the first thing that pops in your head. There's no right answer, right? No, there's no wrong answers. Like for instance, for me, when I look at that, I'm like, blue, right? Like a blue. Okay, so after that, I'm gonna say, okay, what value is that? On a scale 1 to 10, 1 being pure white, 10 being pure black, what number is that? And I can even, I have a pure white right here. That's the number 1 value. All right. So that's like, my base. I have like a close to a number 9 value right here. Right. So I can use that and compare to that. I'm like, okay, that's like more so like if I were to compare this to like both the dark as well as the light. I mean, I can put that as a number of like maybe like a number, let's say like a number 6, right? So then I would like, just get a white and then create like a number 6 value of that blue, right? And then once I do that, then I can look up and see I have this color right here. You can see in my palette, and I'm gonna look into that color once more, where in the reference, I can ask myself, all right, once I have this red, should I be leaning this local color more towards the red, yellow, or blue, right? And then by comparing this color that I already have here, which is around 60 to 70% correct or accurate to whatever it is I'm looking at, all I have to do is just push in and nudge it, shift it within either red, yellow, or blue, which is the three primary color spectrum. See what I'm trying to say? So by looking at that, what do you think? Definitely no blue, right? So, we're eliminating blue because we already have blue. So that's eliminated, right? So it's between red or yellow. What do you think? By looking at this color that I already mixed versus this value in the reference, like, what do you think? Should there be more red or more yellow? Don't think, just the first thing that comes to your mind.
Wait, you're talking about her armband?
Yeah, like this little light shape right there, like on the reference. You see that?
Should it be more red or yellow?
Yep. Should I add a little bit more red or yellow to this light blue that I mixed here, if we were to compare?
I'd say a little bit more red.
Exactly. See? And I was about to do that too. I was like, oh, I see a little bit of red. But, I figure I let you in, right, into that kind of idea. And as you can see, just by doing that, it allows us to get a value that's pretty close to what it is we're seeing over there. Does that kind of make sense?